Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Legacy Leaders. I'm Scott McMeans, and today I'm blessed to have Leo Michael, Leo Michael Illustration. He is a freelance cartoonist. Why in the hell am I having a cartoonist on my podcast today? Right? So, Leo, we talked about this. Like, why would anybody learn a lesson from a cartoonist? But wait a second. The guy's been through a lot. He's got a really cool business. And at the end of the day, talent shines. So I'm going to turn the microphone and the camera over to Leo so he can explain a little bit about himself, what he does, how he got into business, and how that business has kind of been formed over the years by either his own efforts or people that have kind of asked him to do things that he built the business from. So, Leo, the microphone, camera, are yours. Tell us your story.
Okay. Oh, well, Scott, first of all, nice to join you today. Um,
Absolutely.
as we were talking previously, I had always been involved in my school papers growing up, and that was a big influence on me as far as career choices. From my time in grade school, in high school at St. Vincent St. Mary, and the University of Akron, working on the Book to Light, which was an excellent publication, by the way. Um, it was just a great experience working with deadlines, commenting on uh, important issues that faced, school life at that time or outside of school life. And I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to pursue this career wise, but the more I became involved in it and liked the whole idea of commenting on important issues, I thought, well, I might want to take a swing at this. So I really wanted, as I got out of school, I wanted to become a editorial cartoonist for a daily paper, which even at that time was a dwindling field. So that was kind of like a lofty aspiration that probably wasn't going to be fulfilled by for many people. And I did get an offer for a paper in Iowa, but I ended up turning that down to pursue other options. And when I got out of school, I started freelancing. Um, I thought temporarily, little did I know, but I started working for trade publications that covered vital industries, industries like cable and telecom, um, the rubber and tire industries, the automotive industry, um, propane. I mean, you name it. I mean, there were several vital industries, and my main client over the years has been Crane Communications, which in the
Okay.
Cleveland area or Northeast Ohio, everybody is very familiar with Crane's Cleveland business. Um, but
Yeah.
Crane actually, which is out of Detroit and is privately owned, has over 30 publications.
Wow.
And at the time that I started working for Crane here in Akron, they had four publications based out of Akron. So I began working for, and my first publication for them was Waste News, which became Waste and Recycling News. And if you ever watch The Sopranos, you'll notice that The Sopranos read Waste News. So that was our claim to fame back then,
Wow.
which was kind of an interesting tidbit, actually.
What an interesting mic drop. Okay, I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it. I like it.
But that was my introduction with the Crane family, and I soon after began working for Rubber and Plastics News, and down the road, automotive news, and then tire business, and now plastics news. Waste and recycling news has since stopped publishing years ago,
Oh wow. Okay.
so that's no longer in existence. But the other Crane publications are solid publications that cover really important industries. The automotive industry in particular now, with everything going on with the tariff situation, and obviously the tariff situation affects all of the industries,
Yeah.
but I think the auto industry probably more so. So there's never a dull moment, and there's always something to comment on, and which to a cartoonist is gold. So you have material, coming at you, and you just have to figure out how to navigate that. And it's
Oh,
fun and it's challenging.
okay. fun and challenging because one of the things I wrote out here is how do you get your creativity out into the marketplace when you work for somebody else? So, in other words, how much of what you draw is asked of you versus what you come up with and present?
Okay, good question. Um, Nothing that I draw for the trade pubs, or rather, I should say, I don't draw anything without approval from my editors. Okay.
Okay.
I will, for instance, with automotive news, I will give them several topics on a Monday or Tuesday morning and say, these are some of the avenues that we could take for the week. And what do you guys think? Should we go in this direction or that direction story wise? And they say, well, maybe we should hit on this or that, and then I just provide them with ideas. Okay,
Okay.
so the ideas are mine. They may tweak them, they may tweak the wording, or tell me to go back to the drawing board and start over and think of something else, which
Okay.
happens occasionally. So you have to be
So
ready to turn on a dime in that way.
that's okay. That's what I wanted to get to is how often does your idea come through without any hitches versus how often do you have to go back to the drawing board? Or is it some kind of algorithm of in between you hit it on the head or you were so not on target?
I think in most cases they take the idea and I just run with it. Um,
Yeah.
in other cases they'll tweak it, or like I said, we'll try something new, take a different subject or a different approach. You
Okay.
know, so just have to be ready, and I always have to assume that I'm going to be going to a plan B when I really like plan A. So
Well,
that's just the nature of the beast.
so and I'm always trying to find the business angle of the business lesson to be learned here. And it's, if anything, it's don't stifle your creativity, but allow somebody to take a look at it. And when they have a critique, don't take it personal, but pivot and make a move so you can get what your creativity was meant to be out into the marketplace. Right. So being nimble and flexible, not on your principles, but what on your product could be, that's a pretty impressive, important lesson, right?
I think so. I think you have to be ready to adjust, and because at the end of the day, it's what I'm doing. It's still it's a cartoon. So my goal is to make people think and or make people laugh, and hopefully, both if the idea
Yep.
comes across. So you just want that to be your end goal. How you get there. Sometimes, like I like to say, sometimes you have to go around the block to get next door, and the idea that you think is obvious doesn't come to you as readily, and you have to go through you know, the mention, you have to go through torture to get there.
No,
But
I get it. I've never heard that before. Sometimes you got to go around the block to get next door. But what you're
yeah.
ultimately saying is, I've tried all these different avenues. I went all the way around, and I'm right back. I'm
Hmm.
just next to where I started, but that's
Right.
exactly where I needed to end.
I
Right?
have to always remind myself, what am I trying to say? So cut to the chase.
Yeah.
What is the point I'm trying to make? And sometimes it can get watered down with too many words or something else that gets in the way of the message, and you just have to get back to the basic point. What are you trying to do?
Yeah. So in that world, Leo, how is it that you're able to work with businesses for so long? Like, how is it that a freelance guy has been tied to one family of publications for so long? I know there's a great answer. I want the audience to understand this is how you do it. So what's been the secret?
Um, I think it varies with the publication because when I first started with Crane, I was dealing with people on a personal level,
Mm,
where I would either well, here in Akron, I would know them face to face, and we would establish a relationship. I'm dealing with people in Detroit for the most part, and it's an email relationship, and it's
mhm.
back and forth, and in some ways it's kind of it's kind of impersonal and odd because you don't really have that face to face, but at the same time, you're communicating regularly, and I just have to make sure that I'm on the same page with them the whole process. because
Yeah.
I don't want any surprises. You know, when you have a deadline lurking, you don't want surprises. You know, you want to make sure you hit that deadline and everybody's is okay with what you're providing.
Okay, this is interesting because I'm going to go back to one of the reasons why you said you were interested in this dwindling field. And you said, I want to talk about important issues and I love deadlines. So, how is it that a guy who loves deadlines could be such a creative person? And I'm not trying to come at you. I'm trying to understand how does the left and right side of your brains battle each other out? Right?
I
Because
know.
creative people, Leo, they're not interested in deadlines.
No, no, and you would be surprised what you think of in the nth hour and nth minute when when the
Okay.
deadline's knocking on your door. Yeah, I think, and when I first started working, and I knew that I had a deadline that I had to meet, I couldn't sleep the night before. I mean, it would bother me,
Yeah.
and now it's second nature, and I just kind of go with it. And many times when I'm drawing up, because the deadlines coincide with each other, they overlap. While I'm drawing a finished cartoon for somebody, I'm thinking of an idea for another. So my mind is elsewhere, and I could try to channel the drawing and have fun with that, but then I'm going on to the next deadline in my mind.
Okay. So I wanna kind of explore this a little bit because that's like chewing gum as you're eating cake. I don't know how you can do that, right? You're drawing this one, but thinking about something different. It's amazing way your brain is wired to allow you to accommodate those different thoughts. So how is it that you keep them so separate?
Um, well, I think you just kind of learn how to categorize,
Okay.
because I know that while I'm drawing, I'm finishing something. And once the idea is approved, I can move on,
Yeah.
So then it becomes just I'm making a drawing. I'm no longer thinking as much. I have to
Okay.
think somewhat, but I'm not conceptualizing, I should say.
Okay.
And
So yeah, now you're putting the finishing touches, coloring, highlighting a line or something like that. Is that?
you're because I'm drawing digitally, and
Yeah.
it's a lot different. It's a much different process than when I first began. So
Yeah. One thing you made comment used to start out with paper and ink, and now it's iPad, right?
right,
It's a
right.
different drawing technique, but the technology, if I recall from our conversation, it allows you to be that much more nimble because you can change something from blue to red like that, as opposed to you have to erase the blue and add the red. It's a lot more challenging. But today, the digital technology allows you to be a lot more nimble. You still have to have the ability to draw and be creative, but your ability to edit on the fly, being that nimble business, is a lot more on your side now with the technology, right?
Oh, sure, sure. It just gives you so much more flexibility and peace of mind.
Well,
I honestly fought it for a long time, and because I was the thing I really fought was being able to meet my deadlines, um, and still produce what I wanted to produce. I didn't know if I could do it, honestly. And my wife and I have four sons, and they were between her and my boys, they were all, you know, encouraging me to take that leap, and it was the best thing I could have done. So
how long ago did you adopt the iPad for drawing?
it's been less than 3 years ago.
Wow, that is late to the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, just from an illustrator's perspective, right?
It was because I was on a drawing. I was on my drawing table, using rapidograph pens, using ink wash, watercolor dyes, and scanning my pieces in and going that route. And I just the more changes that were
Yeah.
requested, I thought, no, this can't. I can't do
Well,
this any longer.
you could, but it's taking you a lot longer to be responsive and nimble. So, and again,
Hmm.
I'm bringing this back to a business lesson that is, no matter how good you are at something, if technology is available to make your job easier, embrace it. embrace it because it's going to not replace you. It's going to enhance your skill set and make you better at what you do.
Right,
Right. And
right.
that's a good lesson.
Yeah, that was a lesson I needed to learn, and I needed to force myself to go down that road. And happy I did.
Yeah. So, question for you.
Hmm.
How big was your original drawing board versus how big is the iPad? Like, was it difficult to go from the drawing board to an iPad? Because I would imagine, unless you have a huge iPad, how do you regulate the size differences?
Well, the size difference is easy to maneuver because with each publication, I have a different canvas set up on the iPad. So
Okay.
everybody has different dimensions for their use. Um, and I'm working on an iPad Pro, the biggest one available. So the space is actually bigger than what I was actually drawing on illustration board.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, it's great that way. And I should say that the process involved is very similar because I would draw in layers when I was drawing by hand on a board,
Yeah.
using a lot of tracing paper, refining things as it went along, and then transferring to the board and inking and adding color. But you're doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing on my iPad using the program Procreate, where you're drawing in layers and you
Yeah.
can easily adjust things and um, edit things and adjust opacity, and it's great. It's
I
really
can't imagine how much faster it is for you to do today's drawings versus 4 or 5 years ago.
it's a huge difference. And I think I told you the story before, but when I was first starting out on the iPad, I was doing a piece for Automotive News involving uh, the weight of EVs in parking garages. And right after I finished that cartoon, there was an incident in New York where a parking garage collapsed, and my editor got a hold of me, and he said, we really can't run this."
Probably a
and I
bad
said,
idea.
"No, you really can't." And so, but at the time, I was drawing something for Tire Business, and I had to come back to Automotive News. So again, while I was drawing Tire Business, I had to think of something for Automotive News and get it out in a couple hours.
Yeesh.
And so I was able to do that. And if I was on a board, I would not have been able to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, a quick question about the creative process, and I'm, going around the block to get to where you were next door. How do you? Is it normally the first idea that you have that just gets tweaked, or are there multiple ideas you go through to tell the same story?
it could be the first thing that pops into your head. There's
Okay.
no, I mean, anybody that deals with the creative process can tell you, a lot of times your first idea is your best idea, but
Yeah.
not necessarily so. So it could
Okay.
be the beginning of something that you could build on, but yeah, it could be. It's a process. You don't know where it's going to lead you a lot of times, and yeah, it's interesting. I'll tell
I'm
you.
sure it is. Like, again, I go back to a creative person that is exhilarated by timelines and deadlines. There's a lot of creative juices that get literally squeezed out at the last moment because it just has to be that way for you, right?
Sure, sure.
Okay. So as we're going through your process and trying to think about ways to apply it to a business mindset, what are some of the bigger challenges that you, Leo, have faced in building this freelance business that you have? What are some of the bigger challenges that you faced?
Well, I think first of all, the biggest challenge was the digital um,
Okay.
transition. That to me was the big thing. Beyond that, I think getting out of your comfort zone, because I have regular deadlines, and thankfully I have regular deadlines, and I'm able to schedule around those. I really need to do some of my or work my own projects into my schedule in a better
Okay.
way, because I have book projects that I've been putting on hold, and I really want to start working on those now. And but obviously the bread and butter is the trade publications, you
Yeah,
know, but I think you have to get outside of that, and you can't get locked into your routine as much. Make yourself uncomfortable, I think.
I love the idea of making yourself uncomfortable. That's really what most people talk about when they get on the podcast here is in order to be successful, you can't remain comfortable, right? You have to reach outside of that comfort zone and find yourself in an area willing to grow and build a bigger comfort zone. Um, just thinking about this, how many different drawings or um, deadlines are you working on in a given week?
I would say usually it's about four.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do they all, and this is just because my mind goes to how do you do this? Do they all finish on the same day, or is it one's on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Like, how do you do this?
Well, some of them vary, but a lot of them come together Thursday, Friday, with
Okay.
Thursday being my main deadline day. So
Okay.
I'm working around that more than any other day.
And has the digital publication world changed the deadlines? Meaning, or in other words, when it was print, you had to have it in by a certain day, knowing it was going to be printed, and how many days later it was actually out of the market. Now it could be instantaneous, right? So has that changed the deadline approach or the timelines that you work under?
Not necessarily, because the deadlines that I have, like for instance, I'm going to be working on next week's automotive news. It won't be coming out until next Monday.
Okay.
So everything related to that issue will be seen on Monday and no sooner. So
Okay. Okay.
um, there's still kind of a set schedule as far as being able to see things,
Okay.
but you'll have access to everything, obviously digitally. I mean, not many people are still getting their daily newspaper or even getting a physical copy of these trade publications. They're looking at them online. So
Yeah.
for the most part,
So has that made it easier to do what you do or harder with the electronic age?
I don't think it made any difference
Okay.
actually.
That's an interesting perspective because
Yeah.
I'm going from the idea of um, there's a deadline so many days out for print, and all of a sudden it's digital. It has to be done quicker. But you're saying the deadlines have always been there. It's just a matter of moving the goalpost a little closer to reality.
Mhm. Just how they're being used is much different, obviously.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you were to have an audience, what lesson do you think they should learn from you as a guy that's been a business owner and dealing with, I would you have multiple bosses, so multiple clients. What are the lessons that you think are worthwhile for somebody to learn as they start out?
Boy, that's a good question. I think you have to be prepared for for rejection. You have to take that in stride and just use it as fuel for your next idea. You know,
Okay,
because I'm not assuming that anything that I'm going to throw out there is going to right away be approved. I'm going to go with that, and then but be ready to turn and go with something else.
I like that because it's turning what could be easily perceived as a negative situation and turning it into the absolute positive, which is all right. I'm prepared for this. I know it's coming. All I have to do is make a few tweaks, and I'm back on track, and you have what you need. That's a
Right.
really good lesson in collaboration if you think about it, right?
And you can't
Because
you can't take it personally either.
well, okay, that is probably one of the better lessons that I think business owners need to realize. It's nothing personal. It
No.
isn't. It isn't that somebody on your editorial staff does not like Leo today. Otherwise, they love you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be working with you. So their decision to say a critique or add a suggestion isn't because they don't like you personally. It's because they want this to be a little bit better, right? And through
Yeah,
that
I think that's
collaboration, right?
always. Yeah.
Yeah, because and I think this is an interesting point too. You've been working as a freelance person for many, many years with the same family of publications. You easily could have said, I'm going to go find a new clientele. But there's something about that collaboration on both of your sides that makes it worthwhile so you continue doing it. There's some value in that, right?
There is. And I have to say, Crane in particular is a very good company, and they're very easy to work with, and which makes it great as a freelancer.
Sure.
So,
So if you were to have your dream job, Leo, what would that dream job look like?
oh wow, that's a good one, Scott. Um, I think I would still be on my own, and I would just be illustrating books, actually.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
now we know the next chapter of the Leo Michael story.
let's hope.
No pressure on that.
No,
I do have a last question for you.
what's that?
And thank you. This has been unbelievably insightful. I'm going to throw you into a time machine and I'm going to find 18-year-old Leo Michael and have you two sit down next to each other on a park bench. What's that conversation look and sound like?
Oh wow. Geez, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think my 18-year-old self, I think I would still tell him to pursue a creative field, but be more open to taking different uh, paths along the way.
Okay. Open to opportunity, open to different ways, open to not being a freelancer. What's the opportunity you're looking for there?
I think freelancing is fine. I think when I first started freelancing, it wasn't very common.
Yeah.
It was less common back then. I think just being able to uh, just try different things as you're building
Okay.
your clientele and
Sure.
building your portfolio.
Yeah, because well, as a freelancer, it's always hard to determine when's your next opportunity coming from, right? Where's the next paycheck? But you've built a pretty good reputation with a family of publications that they like what you do and they keep coming back. So therefore, there's a good relationship there. And it's not that they're your bosses. You collaborate to send the message that they're looking to send. And I think it's a brilliant way of building a relationship, regardless of employer, employee. It's business and clientele collaborating to make a better situation for both parties, right?
True. Yeah, very true. I think there's just a mutual respect, and I think that we tend to depend that we'll each hold our end of the bargain,
That's
which
it.
is takes away a lot of the worry away from the whole freelance experience.
Well, it makes it a lot easier to keep doing your job knowing that the other end is being held up by somebody that absolutely believes in what you're doing and they support you, right? Because it's really hard to carry the load when only one person's lifting.
That's true. And at the end of the day, I'm drawing cartoons for for a job, so
Pretty good job.
it's
I
a
think it's pretty
win-win.
cool. Yeah. Well, I look forward to putting this one on the podcast setup on YouTube, and I'm going to use a couple of the illustrations you sent. So I'm excited to see what the public reaction is going to be, especially on LinkedIn, because I think it'll be fun to watch. I want to thank you for being on the show. This has been great. Any final words?
No, I just want to thank you, Scott, for your time. This has been fun.
Oh, I'm glad you think that. This has been a great experience. So thank you so much. We'll see everybody the next episode of Legacy Leaders.